Hi guys, thank you very much for joining today. We're going to do an interview with Karin Conradie. Karin is an event organizer, mostly at Europa and Ipona, but let her tell you her story before I kind of get carried away here. Karin, thank you so much for joining me today. Kind of just give our viewers an idea of who you are. Where did you start riding? When did you start riding? Kind of how you got to where you are today.
I started riding when I was got my first pony when I was 6 years old, and my dad thought it'd be a really great idea to get a green, untrained pony that was, I was about 6 and she was about 6 as well, so we could grow together. And yes, that was a very interesting process, and I fell off a lot and I got very interesting injuries, did a couple of shows, and she ended up getting laminitis by the time I was 16, and it was time to move on to horses. We didn't really have the means to buy myself an awesome junior horse, so I ended up leasing and riding whatever I could. And from there I fell in love with eventing. I was really, really passionate about eventing, and a little bit of show jumping, dressage for the birds, what's dressage? Boring circles. And yeah, ever since then things have changed a little bit with my passions, because now it's like everything else is for the birds, and I really love dressage. I'm really passionate about that, and I enjoy organising the events at Europa and Ipona, as well as competing, and I've got 2 horses that I ride, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome. So like I think many of us, you kind of started out going one way and then, life changed and went in a different direction. So I think you compete a level above where I am at the moment with your older horse. You just moved up to advanced just when I kind of grooved into medium. How have you found that, for me personally, like having gone that step up and having dressage be harder and more technical, that kind of was where my bug really bit. It was like, ooh, this is hard, I have to really work at this. How have you found that, taking that step up to like medium or advanced has kind of changed your mindset in terms of the sport of dressage and the training of the horse and kind of your enjoyment of the sport?
Dressage to me, like I said, was always just one of the phases of eventing. For me, it's sort of, you had to get through that to get to the fun stuff. And my horse, the older horse, Moose, as I call her, I brought her to event. I went up to Namibia, had a look at a whole bunch of horses, and her bloodlines and everything was really suited for doing eventing. Brought her down, we started up, and we went to quite a few eventing shows, show jumping shows, and then I ended up moving yards to get something closer to home. And at that point, when I took her out of the horse box, the yard owner said, "Oh my goodness, look at her, you need to do showing." What showing? So I said, okay, I'll give it a try. Took her off showing, and then she had this really amazing run at showing. She was really amazing for the judges to ride, because she's got a really stable temperament. She's well put together, like you would expect the event horse to be, and she did really well in showing. So off I went, I put myself forward for the Western Province team, and I got obsessed with showing. And the more I got obsessed with showing and putting condition on, which of course event horses, you want a little bit leaner. Yes. So I'm putting condition on, I'm making her round, and she can't have marks on her, and the legs, it has to be perfect. We got a little bit obsessed with perfect. Off we went, we got onto the Western Province team, we went to the South African Championships, we won the team championships, the individual show hunter championship, we were reserve. She pretty much won everything that I entered her in. So now I'm in love with showing. It's the best thing ever. All you have to do is look pretty. And she was a show hunter, so we get to gallop, so we still get the need for speed. We still go. And you look pretty, and it's nice. And then, as the universe would have it, frivolous fun is no good. And we were gearing up for the next SA Champs. And she broke her splint bone. She had a spiral fracture in 2 places. She was never unsound, but it came up, it was probably the size of a little bit smaller than a tennis ball, sitting on that cannon bone, and of course for showing, that's the end of the road. I explored possibilities of having it removed surgically, and when I started weighing up the options of general anesthetic, it just was not worth the risk for me. And I discussed it with the vet, and he asked if she has any other careers that she could pursue. I'm like, eventing, show jumping, dressage. Said, well, if she's got other options, go for it. And if you really feel strongly about it in 6 months' time, we can reevaluate to see if it's getting bigger or absorbing. And that's how I started with dressage. And the sitting trot.
Yes. The bane of any dressage rider's existence.
And I did not get that right for many months.
I still, to this day, have moments.
Oh, yes.
Because he's quite short. And he's got big engine, so when he sits just behind the saddle, he kind of halts. And then there's absolutely no way that I can just sit into him and find him.
Only place to go is
up. And it looks like I'm doing a really fast rising shot. So I completely understand. So you guys have worked all the way up to advanced. I mean, it's not child's play, I personally, for me, I think when you hit like the end of elementary, medium and medium, it's like, okay, I've got it. I'm doing dressage. I'm not just going around in circles. How did you from being a rider, how did you get into event organizing?
Event organizing kind of fell in my lap. It was a friend of mine that had too many irons in the fire, and she needed a bit of assistance at one of the events, and then she said, you know what, it looks like you really enjoy it. Why don't you just run one of the shows?
Awesome.
And I tried it, and it's part of my brain really likes organizing and getting things into
neat little boxes.
Dressage, neat little box, and I really, really enjoy it. So that's how I got into event organizing. And as soon as I started with the events at Europa, Epona approached me. That's where I stable, where I keep moose, and they said, we'd like to run a few shows, would you mind helping us? And
okay, awesome. So for those of the listeners who's never organized a show, you'll probably find a lot of people kind of like, oh, the entry's out, and okay, I enter, and then I kind of, get the program, and I rock up and I ride, and, I go home type thing. I know you guys, especially with Europa, you are a graded venue, which means that your show dates you kind of have to apply for in advance, and they get set in the calendar for the whole year by the Western Cape Equestrian Federation, as far as I understand. So from there, which is like, although you might have your dates that you want to have, those specific dates are also a little bit in their hands, because you can't have two shows in the same area at the same time. It's especially in the Western Cape, I don't think it's feasible. But from there, so let's say, okay, I have my dates. How would you approach then, like, planning a show?
Initially, it took me quite a while to find my rhythm, but now I've got templates for everything. So my first thing is, now I've just kind of rolled over like one show to the next. I'm like, where's my starting point? Is usually approaching my judges. I like having different judges for each show, and I run my shows over 2 days. So I have up to novice on the Saturday, and then elementary and above on the Sunday, and that is because I need 2 different panels of judges. Many people are not aware that you go up the grades with dressage, you go up the grades as a judge, and certain judges are only allowed to judge up to a certain level. So I need to make sure that for my novice horses, I can obviously use all the judges, because all the judges can judge up to novice. And then for my elementary and above horses, I need judges that can judge the highest level that was entered. So if I'm only running up to medium, I can use a different group of judges, as opposed to if I run advanced, I need to have a judge that can judge that for me. So I first make sure that I pull out my spreadsheet, and I check which judges I had in the last 2 months, and I make sure I don't ask any of them. And then I go and pick my judges I would like for this show coming up. Generally I send them an email, but some of them are a little bit tough to get hold of. So then a phone call, just say, listen, are you available? These are the dates. They either say yay or nay, and then from there you just go down the list and you find whoever. Once you've got your judges secured, the big thing that's really incredibly hard to secure is the scribes. For the novice day, again, that's anyone that wants to learn. It's a great day. The tests move slower. It's really low stress. Whereas the higher days, especially in the medium classes and advanced, the movements come really quickly. And a lot of the more novice scribes, they kind of want to go look at the movement, then look at the judge and go, what was that mark? And then, and by that time in an advanced test, you've 4 movements behind, which creates chaos. And it's so I need my experienced scribes to join me, and then I also try not to overwork them and then rotate through them. Once I've organised all of those, I need to organise a medic.
Yes.
Which I routinely forget about, so I've now sent the medic my dates for the year and said, if you don't hear from me,
those are the dates.
Those are the dates, they're set. Once all of that's done, then I wait for closing date of entries, and I get anywhere, I checked last week, for my average show, not a big one, just the average one, 50 to 80 horses, I get anything from 150 to 400 emails incoming with when is closing date of entries, can I have a stable, my horse is trucking with another horse from really far away, we're in different classes, can we be close together? All those things are great, and I don't mind special requests as long as they come in before closing date of entries, because once entries close, that's when the real work starts. I've got to follow up on payments, memberships, odd payments, and I don't have access to Europa's bank account, so I have to sit with a spreadsheet of what people should be paying. So you've entered Danny in a medium class, should be around 390 Rand. You've made a payment of 450. I tell Europa it's 390, and they go, I've got someone with a similar name, but it's 490. Okay, no, it's probably not that payment. And then some people use their name as a reference, some use the horse's name, some uses the DSA number, some people just use the reference of when they first entered Europa 10 years ago. So tying up the payments can be really painful. Then it's working out the time slots, trying to slot everyone in, not too early, not too late, close to the person they're traveling with, far enough if there's an instructor that's got 4 or 5 pupils, try and spacing everyone far enough apart so that the instructor is not running themselves silly. And then it's on the day, it's just hold thumbs and go.
So I think, for a rider, a lot of your work's the preparation beforehand. I mean, you've got to practice your tests and all of that. But for a rider, a show day, your big work is on the show day.
Yes.
Where I think people don't always see that when you're organising a show, most of the work actually happens 2-3 weeks before, and then from closing date to the actual show. The day of the show, especially if you've got a well-oiled machine and you've got your people in place, very few things go wrong.
Yes, that's when I can actually breathe. Yeah. Is when I arrive at 9 o'clock and the show has to start, I turn the music on, I call the first horse in.
And there you go.
And there I go.
And I think, like you said, you try and accommodate people as best as you can, but when you've got like 400 emails for 80 horses, it becomes near impossible to keep everybody happy.
Yes.
And you kind of have to look and go, okay, what is the most logical way of approaching this problem? I remember when I was helping Simone when we were doing the Young Horse series, it was slightly different because you had all 3 judges sitting in one box, and having that conversation. We tried to run it as close to how the FEI does it, because in the FEI they have a panel that discuss the marks and you have one scribe. And I remember sitting there and scribing, and you sitting there going, okay, whoa, who said what? But same thing, the big work wasn't the day of the show. That day kind of, especially by the 3rd or 4th show, everybody kind of slots into a routine and it becomes easy. The other question I had in terms of like finding sponsors and things, because that's something I always struggled with, is like approaching someone and saying, hey, you've got a really great brand, could you come on board as a sponsor? Have you found in the years that you've been running the show that it becomes easier to kind of keep your sponsors, or do you kind of try and rotate sponsors as much as possible?
When I first started, I was not brought up to ask for money. If you want something, you say for it, you pay for it, you're done. But running a show, you can obviously not pull everything out of your back pocket the whole time. So we do need sponsors to make it possible. And initially typing up that email going, can I please have a little 1,000 rand? or something. That was really incredibly difficult, and I would sit over it for hours and hours and go, no, this doesn't seem right. Can I? And by now, it's just I type up an email, listen, send out to the mailing list. I need a rosette sponsor for the shows. Anyone keen to sponsor the rosettes? It's a really nice way to get your brand out there, to get pictures, and everyone, they take the rosette home, they put it on their wall, they're looking at it for eternity. It's a great way to get your brand out there. So now it's a lot easier for me to ask for sponsorship, and I do have regular sponsors that will tell me at the start of the year, I'd like to contribute to 2 or 3 shows, and then I make sure I don't overlap them, or try and squeeze one sponsor too much, or have, for example, physios, have 2 physios sponsoring at the same show because it's conflict. And sometimes it just happens that both of them will contact you at the same time, and then you go, there's a bit of a conflict. This person came in first. I do have another show coming up in 4 weeks' time, but they know by now, so it's a lot easier.
And then, so the 2 show venues that you do work for, Europa and Epona, they kind of each have their own little niche, you know. Yes. So Europa, specifically on the dressage side, has got the Victor Ladorum series, and then Epona's got the gold medal, gold ribbon?
The ribbon series.
Yeah, okay. So could you maybe just how did you guys start with your Victor Ladorum series at Europa, and kind of, you know, because it's really grown. I think, you know, the reason you guys ran it again this year is because we all went, but we want it again, you know, and where Epona's, you know, it's a completely different, like, niche, you know, it's a different idea. So let's start with Europa, with the Victor Ladorum. Kind of, where did you guys start with that idea, and how did you grow it from, you know, just a thought to an actual series?
With the Victor Ladorum series, it started out where we needed to boost entries. We saw that entries, it was very scattered. Some weekends we'd clash with a bit of show jumping, or we'd clash with the eventing show, but there was no firm base of people coming back weekend after weekend after weekend. So I thought the best way to do that is running something similar to what the Western Cape Dressage does, which is called the rider rankings, where they take the whole year and they take your best 6 scores, work out the average, and then get a ranking. A very nice way to track progress. And I thought, you know what? I know for myself, I am really, really spoiled when it comes to shows. I like going to Europa. It's literally up the road from my yard. I don't like schlepping for an hour and a half to get to other venues. I like the setup. I can get in, I can get out. I like the going. Everything works. What if there's other people like me that live in the area that just come to this one venue? Why can't we run a rider ranking for them? And I started it off just without even publishing it, just checking how much work it is to go and sit after each show, and every competitor has 2 tests, filling in 2 tests for every competitor, working out the average, fighting with Excel, because I'm not a huge Excel fan at all. And when I looked at it, I'm like, I have to capture the results for Dressage SA in any case, off the written sheets from the judges onto Excel. Copy, paste, fiddle. And then I pitched it to the owners of Europa, and I said, I'd like to do this as a series. I think it could really boost people and get them motivated to, you know, keep coming back, keep improving. And if I make sure that I don't, because for most of the series that the ungraded venues hold, they usually have the same judge for the whole series. And there's nothing worse than entering a series and you go down center line and you look up and it's your most dreaded judge. And you've got that judge for the whole series. So I make sure that back-to-back shows never have the same judges. So you've got a chance of riding under just about every single judge in the Western Cape, whether you ride up to novice or novice and above. And it worked. We suddenly started seeing people being really excited, like, oh, I'm fifth. I can't believe out of 50 horses, I'm fifth. And then they come back and they try and beat it, and they beat their own scores, and they keep improving. And we've seen a lot of horses moving from novice into elementary, and then I've seen an incredible amount of horses moving from EM into medium. I mean, I've lived and competed in the Western Cape my entire life. There used to be 1, maybe 2, 3 horses if you were lucky. I think the 2nd or 3rd show of this year I had 10 entries in medium. It was huge, and I was like, oh, it's fantastic, because everyone is going, they're competing, they're setting their own goals, they're running their own race. They're measuring against where they're lying in the group, but it's not It never gets that kind of competitive, and it gets a really nice spirit going. And of course, at the end of the series, they get to take home a trophy, and they get to keep that trophy for life. And
awesome. Yeah. No, I we did a similar thing in Gauteng, well, with the Young Horse Series, where we kind of had a couple of qualifiers and then, a championship class. And I found the same thing happening between the riders and with the horses. And then obviously it being the same familiar faces the whole time, you also as an organizer tend to build a relationship with those people. And I completely agree with you, the payout of having horses going from elementary, medium into medium, which it's not an easy grade, it's a tough grade. And actually seeing people progress into a proper dressage grade, and like you say, having 10 entries, that it's like when I started, I think it was 2017, you're right, it was like 2-3 people that were entered. And it's so awesome to now have more people wanting to improve their dressage. I think often people get stuck in novice, like you said, because of the sitting trot. That novice elementary step, the biggest step there is the sitting trot, and people kind of get stuck into it.
Yes.
Where now you give them incentive. It's like, well, if you can master the sitting trot, then you can do this. And if you can master that, then you can do this, which is, freaking awesome. And then with your ribbon series at Epona, you guys run that very differently, if I remember correctly.
Yes, that runs in a completely different mindset. So the idea behind that is you ride towards a ribbon of a specific color. So I can't exactly remember but I think the top category is gold. So you get a gold ribbon, a silver ribbon, a bronze ribbon, a red, and then a blue ribbon. Your blue ribbon is for 60 to 65%.
Yeah.
65 to 7 or 69.99 is your red ribbon. Then 70 to 75 is your bronze, 75 to 80 is your silver,
80 and up, yeah.
Right, so the numbers might be a little bit skewed there. But then you ride for your ribbon. So it doesn't matter if you're riding a medium test, a pre-St. George test, a prelim test. If you're riding a 70% test, you get your gold or your silver ribbon. And you can ride against me, who's riding advanced, and I might ride a 70% test. We both get silver ribbons. So then we're competing in our grade at a certain, across the grades, but at a mark level. And then all the silver ribbons go together at the end of the season to then compete for the championship. And you will still do your prelim test, I will still do my advanced test, just the highest one in the championship in their own grade, in that band will then get the championship.
That's awesome.
And it's really nice because my horse Moose, I always believed was a 60% horse. On a really good day, she's an average horse. On a really good day, will get a 60%. So that's nice for me is when I go up against your, the famous horses that all get like 70 pluses, that you're actually competing against horses who also only get 60%. And then you find out who between the 60%ers are the best of the bunch. And what actually happened, I competed in the ribbon series, even though it's non-graded, because I feel that when you do take that step up, and you're going from elementary medium, and you think you've got it, and you then dip your toe into medium, you still need that mileage.
Yes.
And for me, going to a show, putting on my show jacket, and going to ride against, because I've never done dressage before the horse I have now. A little bit as a junior, but
because you had to,
It's just, I'm just a regular person with a regular horse, and now we're in medium, and people are going, medium, and I'm going, medium. So I did the ribbon series just to get more exposure to riding the test in a competition setting without the actual stress on top of it being a graded competition and people talking and all of that. Which is actually really irrelevant because what other people say about you is none of your business. And that actually helped me a lot, and the environment at Epona is so supportive, and everyone's there cheering for you, and you get a glass of champagne when you're done. And I ended up winning the Red Ribbon Series, the championship, and I was so surprised because I rode a medium test, and I rode a 69% test. It is the best test I've probably ridden in my entire life. And had I not pushed myself to do the series, and it's so simple, you call it a series, it's You can pick any 3 shows and call it a series. You can go to Stellenbosch and to Constantia and to VRA, and you can call it your own little series. But the moment the venue calls it a series, it's like it ignites something in riders, and it gives you something to aim towards and work towards, and it's fantastic.
I find it very interesting, you talking about having an average horse and you being an average rider, because I'm in exactly the same boat. You know, when we started out, he's a very powerful horse, but he's not a flashy mover. He's a very mechanically sound, economical mover, which is why for me at 18 he's still going, and you know, there's no signs of stopping. So I'm really grateful for that. But the same thing, you know, even when we were really good and we were really on top of it, 68% was huge.
Yes.
And for me, I'm the type of person who, you know, if I get a solid 6.5 and above score, it's like, yes, I did it, I pushed, you know. And when you get like an 8 for your center line because it's technically correct and it's straight and the halt is good, you know, those little moments are like, you know,
because those are the things that you can actually control. That has nothing to do with places. There's no reason that anyone sitting on any kind of horse whatsoever coming up center line and doing a square halt cannot get an 8.
Exactly, you know. And so those little things, those little 8s and those comments about, you know, obedient horse and lovely to watch, and those are also for me what pushed. And I think same thing, you know, you've got riders on 60% of horses, and a lot of us are average riders, and a lot of us have average horses because first of all that's what we can afford, and second of all that's what we are capable of riding.
Yes.
You know, if I look at some of the international horses, it's been Hartbury this last weekend and I watched some of the video footage from there. There's no way I could effectively ride some of those horses. They just too sharp and too quick and too buzzy. I probably wouldn't enjoy riding them.
Yes.
You know,
I think that's a big thing. That riders need to, apart from looking at their budget, because I think a lot of people get themselves into bad situations looking at horses that's beyond their budget. If you have a budget, don't look at anything beyond your budget. You will find a super horse irrespective of your budget. You will find something that is super. It might not be the age you want, might not be the color that you want, you know, it might not tick all the boxes, but if you know what you need out of a horse, you can, regardless of the budget, you can find something that'll work. Because if you have a sound mind and a fairly sound body, it's the mind that'll get you further. You can have the most talented horse in the world, but if every time it gets to a show, it goes, can't do it, or it won't get in the horse box, or it won't let you mount when you're at a show. That is for me, when I look at my moose and she doesn't move for an 8 or a 9. She was not bred to do the job of dressage. But I point her at the horse box, she walks straight in, she travels like a dream, I unload her on the other side, she gets out and she goes, okay, I can do everything on my own, tack her up, get on, she doesn't spook, she doesn't bolt, she doesn't buck, she doesn't rear. Not because I have trained her so meticulously, but because she's got such a good workable mind. And that's why we've gotten to where we've gotten, because never at any point did she say, I can't do it, there's no way I'm not doing it. And yes, the funniest thing about her is, if I had to go based on how she performed in novice, I would never have pursued dressage.
Yeah.
My horse never cracked a 60% in novice.
Sure.
Not once. To date, medium is her best grade. She was 4th or 5th overall in the province last year in medium. I did 3 shows.
Sure, so you didn't even get your 6 marks average?
No, I didn't. But we took time off from competing to fix offline changes.
Yeah.
And yesterday, I went to CVRC, I got 7s for my flying changes, where I used to get 2s.
Yeah.
Because the back end used to come up and the tail used to come over my helmet, and it used to just be very exciting. And now we've managed to change the balance, change my reaction, my body, get everything lined up. And the judge came up to me afterwards and said, you know what, your flying changes are so cool now. I'm like, yes, I know, I could feel it. And just to get that feedback from the judges. And that's a judge, when I was a novice, I would ride down centre line and go, not this judge hates me. She hates me. And I've gone down the judge route myself now, and I can, if competitors would just spend the time, just once a year, just sit in the judge's box with the judge, describe, you will see there is no personal vendettas. There's no, they prefer a bay horse over a grey horse. There's none of that. It's just basic way of going, and quite rightly so. When my horse was novice, her basic way of going was not good enough.
Yeah.
It was subpar, and we pulled in 50s, 55s. And looking back now, I can go, yeah, that's actually where she was at. She wasn't off my leg. She kind of crawl, shuffle, which fair enough. But at the time, in the moment, in the emotion, I didn't understand. Why does my horse get a 55? She did such a beautiful trot. Her 20-meter circle was 20 meters, but there's more to it than just riding a round circle of 20 meters. It's the suppleness, which when she was a novice, suppleness, what does that mean? I don't know. And I didn't have a trainer at that point that could dumb it down for me, because I'm not a talented rider. I don't have this natural gift that I was born with. Because I always used to look at the riders in the high grades and I'm like, oh, they're so talented. Oh, they have such expensive horses, and you know, they must have lessons all the time, and there's all these reasons why they are where they are. And now that I'm an advanced, and I look at my people around me, I look at Carmen and Jane. I put up a post on Facebook. The three of us sort of bumped into each other in EM. Carmen and I stabled at the same yard, and from EM we've all sort of worked our way up. And yesterday Carmen was competing in Advanced 3, Jane was competing in Prix St George, which has been a lifelong dream of hers, and I was competing in Advanced 1. We were the only horses in the class, so obviously we all won. And there's always this joke that people are like, oh, these people post on Facebook, you know, they won but they were the only horse in the class. It's not my fault. There's no other competitors at that level. I'm still really proud of what I achieved. And there's days where I post it, where like yesterday I had a really super score and it's a personal best. I'm going to post it. I don't care if I was the only horse in the class.
I agree.
I can't control that. But the nice thing was that Carmen's got a super horse. You know, she bought her on a budget. She trained her up from scratch herself, all the way through to advanced. Jane has a super little Namibian warm blood, and she's had him for years. It's not that any one of us went out and said, right, we've won the lotto, or we inherited a whole bunch of money, and we're spending a lot of money and buying a superstar. These are really nice horses, and we've just put the time and energy into training them. And now you can imagine just looking back down to the novice people looking at us going, oh, they must be so talented, they must be so this. And I know how each one of us struggled. Either, I know Jane's horse does really amazing flying changes, it's like a party trick. He just does flying changes. But he has other things that he struggles with. Same with each of the horses at that level. My horse really struggled with flying changes. It took me well over a year and a half to get that puzzle figured out, to get it sorted. And I can just imagine the people in novice going, oh, those people, you know, it's such fancy horses and such super horses. And if I had to show you a picture of my mare when I bought her as a 3-year-old, if it wasn't for her distinctive markings, you would go, it's not the same horse. It's just not. It had no tail. Her neck was this, like, her neck and her head were sort of the same length and size.
Yeah.
No, long legs and a funny body and herring gutted and roach backed, and you cannot believe what good training, if you feed them well, you train them well, they turn into beautiful horses.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree completely. You know, I'm still, my flying changes, that's why we're medium and not advanced. You know, our flying changes are a little bit hit and miss. At home they're good. You know,
yes, but the show changes.
Exactly, and him having been a stallion for so many years, I think sometimes still, when he does get to a show, especially with now the bigger grades, you know, he does feel that slight like pressure to perform, and I think sometimes he scares himself out of them. You know, so I think it's so good that you, because I did the same thing when I moved down to Cape Town. He'd just actually been upgraded 2016, and then 2017 I didn't get the opportunity to compete at all. I was very fortunate. I had someone who half leased him, who absolutely loved him, but she was a novice rider. So, you know, what I did then when I moved to Cape Town 2017 is I downgraded him from medium back to EM, because I thought, you know what's the point in me going into a medium test and it being horrible? because that's not why we compete. You know, we compete to do the work at home and then go to a show and go, hey, I'm getting this, I'm better at this today. Okay, I need to go back and work at that, but this was a good test. And so I downgraded him, and again, you know, the thing that we've been quietly working on is the flying changes. And each horse, I think, it's got its own little strengths and weaknesses. You know, some horses just do a change easily. Other horses kind of really have to think about them. And I think it's so true what you say, you know, with an average horse and an average rider, if you put in the effort and you put in the hours, and you've got someone on your side that like believes in you and helps you train them and helps you be the best rider you can be and help you train your horse to be the horse they can be.
Yes.
You know, eventually, actually, the sky's the limit. You know, I've got an 18-year-old horse and we're still improving him. We're still like doing little things that makes this better and makes that better and gets him more upright. And you know, so I think people often think, oh, it's 12 years old, it's done.
Yes.
I can't change it. It's now, this is the best it's ever going to be. And the same with riders. You know, I see so many older riders kind of go, oh, but I didn't have the opportunities as a teenager. But still, you know, you can get on every day and do something better.
Riding is probably the only sport where age is an advantage. I mean, we have Olympians that I think the oldest Olympian is either 89 or 92 that are for Japan.
Yeah.
So if you're 30 now, you've got 62 years to get better.
Yeah.
You know, that's an awfully long time. Where in a sport like swimming or rugby, you've got 20 years.
Set.
You know, it's set and your career is over and you're prone to injuries and all kinds of things. And we are so lucky that we've got the sport that the longer you do it, the better you get. And if you look at the people who are meddling, okay, with the exception of Charlotte, who's really young compared to the rest, but if you look at Mark Todd,
yeah,
he retired, he went off to go do something else with his life, he came back at it and
still meddling. Yeah.
Because the experience you pick up, the feel you develop, and some people like to think, like, oh, but you know, so and so, they're so talented, they've got such a feel. Some people have natural feel. I'm not one of those people, and I've had to work really hard to develop the feel. Yeah. And oftentimes in the lesson, my instructor will say, "Did you feel that?" I'm like, "No." She's like, "Okay, do it again, do it again." Now, this is what's happening in the horse's body. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, it kind of just feels like she's pulling." She's like, "Oh, okay, so you felt something." So don't have the most natural feel, and it's something you have to work at and work at and work at and work at. And while you're working on yourself getting better all the time, it's really important to not drill your horse over and over and over and over. And I've got a very obsessive personality. I like getting things just so. My horse schools 3 times a week. She hacks, she jumps, she goes for a gallop, and if I don't take her for a gallop often enough, she will take me for a gallop, and there's nothing I can do to stop her. It's not unsafe. She just needs to move and move her body and bounce around a little bit. There's no malice in it, but she just needs to be a horse. And I see a lot of people, especially at the lower grades, they drill and they drill and they drill and they drill, that the horses eventually just want to, if they could pull their hair out, they would. Because it shouldn't be that repetitive. You should be practicing enough to get better without boring your horse to tears. And you would know that if you find dressage boring, you really are doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Then it's not dressage. It's not how it's supposed to be. It's like finding gymnastics boring. It can never be boring. It's too much fun getting better at all the different things all the time. And I think that's where a lot of people are sort of missing the boat. They just keep hammering their horse, and with the idea, even on an average horse, that they go in, they get 61% in novice, and they're right, Tanya, I need 65. You know, if I get 65, then they hit the 65, and they go, ooh, now I need to get 68. You might never get 68% in novice. That doesn't stop you from hitting 60s in elementary. Like I said, my advanced horse has never hit a 60% in novice, ever. And elementary wasn't a good grade for us. Back then you could still get points between 55 and 59%, you'd get 1 point. So we kind of crawled through there, sitting trot and the hips and the, you know, everything. Got to EM and suddenly something just clicked. And EM was a really good grade for us. And the tests flowed better and the movements came quicker, so I didn't have to struggle so much with her getting distracted. It was easier and the things just, it kept us busier. So at her track record, I should never have tried EM.
Yeah.
And yet when I got there, it was one of our best grades. And that's when the passion for dressage, like, it really bit. And I have to try getting more marks for my shoulder ends. I have to get her more supple. Not the chase of the total, but then it becomes, how supple can I get her? How engaged can I get her? Where some people, you'd hear them talking at shows like, ooh, you know, I can't move up until I get that 68%. Like, you might never get 68%. And you're standing in your own way of achieving something great.
Because I think if you think about it, novice, if you've got a really good moving horse and it's averagely balanced, you're going to get good marks.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, because there's a lot of circles and a lot of straight lines and a lot of time between movements. By the time you hit elementary medium, the only way to get decent marks is to have a well-schooled horse that is carrying himself and in front of your leg and over the back. And also I had the same problem in elementary. So I had something ridiculous like 98 points a novice, but I couldn't sit the trot. But same thing, you know, I never scored high. I mean, it was like 55, 60, maybe 65-ish, you know. But I struggled sitting the trot. So I back then had an instructor who went, you're not ready, you're not ready, you're not ready. And eventually I blew my top and I said, well, look, then I'm going to go and find an instructor who's willing to put in the effort into my sitting trot and help me to be ready.
Yes.
And I spent 1 year in elementary because the difference between novice and elementary was actually so minute for him that he got very bored and very distracted and very like, you know, so I spent 1 year in elementary and literally just trying to like do enough shows to get the points so we could go. And same thing, when we hit elementary medium, because now suddenly the movements come faster and it's more challenging and there's more to it and there's more little baby finesses, we also with elementary medium kind of found our groove and kind of thought, okay. You know, even with elementary 5 and 6, which originally I thought, oh, these are horrible tests. Once you start looking at what the test is asking, it's so much easier to write them because you go, this question is because of this.
Your whole approach to what is in the test, instead of just going, right, I need to do a circle here and then I need to do extended trot over there and then the halt and the rein back, you go, so they're seeing after the extended trot, can I rebalance my horse and get him to sit and halt and then step back under himself and then either walk, trot or canter off? That's the questions. And then it becomes less of, novice 6 is hard or elementary medium 6 is hard. And you go, and a lot of times you will look at the higher novice test and you're like, you know, novice 6, you've got leg yields and stuff. And then if you look at the first 2 elementary or the next grade up of those tests, and they're almost easier than the higher tests in the previous grade. And you have to ask yourself, why not just give it a go? The rules do allow for that. So you can be graded novice and you can legally ride 1 grade up, so you can try elementary tests without having to upgrade. And especially if you start struggling to sit the trot, they have changed the lower elementary tests for this year, that you're allowed to rise the lengthens in the test, which I think makes a huge difference.
I agree.
Because that, I don't know about you, but that was the bane of my existence for a long time.
It's still the bane of my existence.
Trot. It's like, okay, and just go!
So obviously being the show organizer and you ride as well and you ride competitively, do you do other things as well as teach and work ride a little bit? Or?
Yes, I do.
Okay. What type of students do you kind of cater for?
I have a wide variety of people, a very small amount of people that I help, but a wide spectrum of people. It's everything from school kids that only ride on the holidays and I keep their ponies ticking over during the term, so that if they do decide on the weekend to ride, they don't get onto a little hand grenade and so that the ponies stay at work. I've got older people that's got young horses that they're producing. I've got young people producing young horses. I've got youngsters on schoolmasters. So it's really a wide variety of people, and I'm very selective with the people that I do choose to help, because I need someone who's going to put in as much passion and energy into their riding as I'm going to put in. And for me, I don't want to stand in the middle of the arena going, oh, that looks fabulous. No, you look superstars, you look fabulous. I want to tell them, listen, you really need to get your heel back. You really need to get your balance sorted out, open your chest out, get your core in there. They go, get your core in there. I'm like, get your core in there. It's like the magic trick. Get your core in there. And really work, not necessarily about the horse's way of going, but just for them as a rider to be better balanced and sort themselves out. And it changes things for the horse. And one of my favorite things to say is a horse can feel a fly on it.
Yeah.
Why are you yanking the rein? Your horse can feel a fly on it. You can just give it a little squeeze. And they go, oh, and I used less aids and it really, really worked. I'm like, yeah, because now you're having a conversation. You're not shouting at your horse anymore. You're now having a very nice, open conversation. And I said, eventually, you'll be able to whisper to your horse. And I won't be able to see what you're doing. But don't shout at your horse as a first option. I mean, you can imagine if I come up to you and I want to ask what the time is. Like, hey, what is the time? You're going to go like, holy crap. And the first thing that you do is you get tense. And that's exactly what happens with horses and riders. Is if you're shouting at your horse, the first thing the horse does is, get really, really tense. And if I go, you're going to be like, huh? Same thing with the horse. But if I walk up and I clearly and concisely say, what is the time? Or excuse me, what's the time? Really polite. And again, if I speak to you in a different language, I like throw some Zulu at you, you're going to be like, hi, And if the horse doesn't understand what you're asking, it doesn't matter if you're whispering or shouting, he just doesn't get it. Yeah. And that for me it's the most important. To speak a language that the horse understands and a language that the student understands. So sometimes I come up with really funny phrases or explain it in very, very strange ways until it clicks. And once it clicks, it just sticks with you.
And it's weird how, like you were talking about feel earlier, I'm also not someone with a natural amount of feel. I have a horse, fortunately, that is super intuitive. So if my body does what it should be doing, he automatically does.
It's like they read the book.
Yeah. And so he's helped me learn the feel, along with having an instructor, as well, with an incredible vocabulary in terms of, but think about it this way, okay, that didn't work, think about it this way. And it's weird how two people try and get exactly the same message across, but the one person puts it in words that your brain goes, click, yes, that's how. And someone else, you're going, but I'm trying and I don't. And that's why I think it's so important that, between instructors and riders and competitive riders, that we don't belittle each other. Because in the same way as two farriers, or a farrier will work for one horse and not necessarily for another, simply because of his methods or, the things that he does. There's the exact same thing with instructors. And that's why I think I've got great respect for you for being selective, because yes, you want someone with passion, but you also want someone that you can have that relationship with and that dialogue with, and not just someone who kind of stares at you and goes, what? No, I don't care. And for me as well, being a high school science teacher, I have that same, come on, be passionate, like you don't have to be brilliant at it, just be passionate about it.
Yes, you don't have to be brilliant, because eventually your passion is going to bring you to brilliance. Because we have this thought that these great riders, like if you look at the greats, look at all of them, they were born great. And you go and sit down and you read the autobiography of George Morris. And the first thing he says is that I'm not a naturally talented rider. I was scared. When I was a junior, I was scared. I was petrified. And it took me years to get over being petrified. And you go, but this is George H. Morris. This is like the god of show jumping and equitation. Like, he was scared. He's not it's impossible that he's not a natural rider. But he had the relentless tenacity to keep wanting to improve himself. Not by bucket loads, but a little bit every single day. And that's the important part.
I completely agree with you there. I think so often, I remember me being a novice rider and looking and going, there's no ways I'm ever getting there, because you just see the gap between where I am now and where I want to be, instead of letting someone break it down for you in little incremental, little baby bits, and all you do is you do 1% better. because when you do 1% better 100 days, you get 100% better.
Yes.
And I think often we kind of, I sometimes get a little impatient, like not necessarily with my horse, but definitely with myself. It's like, but I got this better yesterday and now today it's wrong. And that impatience, sometimes you either use it to build yourself up and go, no, come on, be better. Or, and I think this is what happens with a lot of novice prelim riders, it kind of breaks them down, and instead of it challenging them, they go, well, okay, I'm just going to give up and, stop riding. So yeah, no, I think it's a really, and again, with your own horse, you guys didn't get from novice to advance in one leap.
No, we even took a break from dressage. We took a break, we went eventing, I even took her hunting in an attempt to get her forward. Because this is this, as we call them, dumb bloods.
Yeah.
And they come from Namibia. It's this dumb blood, and it kind of like pokey ploddies around. And my instructor at that stage said, well, why don't we take her hunting? She was an avid hunter, and I said, fine, let's take her hunting. Do we need to change the bit? She was a little rubber snaffle. It's like, there's no point in changing the bit. We'd be lucky if we get her into a canter. She overtook the hunt master. She overtook the hounds. She eventually, by the champagne stop, she was there 20 minutes before everyone else. And needless to say, my horse suddenly realized, I can move with a year on my back. Which was the start of great things, and we never took her hunting again.
No,
because she could, at certain venues, you can hear the hounds. If you go for hacks and things, you can hear the hounds. And when she hears the hounds, her eyes just go really super big. And she starts going, like she gets ready to run. I don't know if she thought they were cheetah or whatever it was. When growing up in Namibia, they grow up a little bit feral. So I'm not sure if she was convinced it was like a pack of wolves coming to eat her, but she was petrified, and the poor person on top was like, when she got off, we should have changed the bit. This thing can run.
You know what? I've read Charlotte's autobiography, and I've read the Vallegro biography as well. And what you said earlier about not drilling them, you don't want to be in the arena 6 days a week doing the same thing the whole time. If you look at the really good horses, and fair enough, we can kind of aspire to get there. But if you look at the really good horses, they also only school in the arena like 4 days a week when they're younger, and by the time that they know how to do the movements, I mean, as far as I understand, Vallegro before Olympics was schooling in the arena like 3 days a week. But he was going out, he was hacking, he was galloping around the countryside, and I think, especially for someone who's dressage driven, with the eventing, you've got the 3 phases that you kind of have to look after, so you kind of have a bit more variation in your training naturally, because you've got 3 things that you have to look at. But I think with dressage riders, it's so easy to just day after day after day go in there and just do the same stuff all over again, where the horses kind of need a break and the horses kind of need to get out.
Yes, because what we forget is we spend, say, 2 hours a day with our horse, of which half the time we ride. My horse generally doesn't school for that long, but on average people are in the saddle for about 40 minutes to an hour. Then we go off, we go to work, we spend time with our families, we do things, we go to gym, we go for a drive, we get stuck in traffic. We have a lot of other stimulus in our lives. Our horse, once you get off, goes to his paddock and either plays with his friends or stands in an individual paddock, whatever setup you have, goes to his stable, sleeps out, gets supper, that's it. So the only real stimulus your horse has on an average day is you riding him. And if it's the same thing over and over, you can imagine how it must feel for that horse.
I mean, it must be like the same with someone who's like in a job that they absolutely hate.
Yes.
They get into the office every morning at 8 and they do the same thing every single day and from 8 to 5, and then they go home and tomorrow they do it all over again. And we've got to look after their minds, and like you said, having a good mind is way more important than
anything else.
Almost for me, soundness, like you said, is quite high up as well.
It's like right under the mind.
But mind, if you have something that you can work with and that's got a good work ethic and that enjoys working and is easy to work with, because some of them like are really competitive and they enjoy working, but they're so high strung and you kind of like have to manage every single step, where other horses are like, yes, okay, I'll push for you and this is awesome, but the brain is like, oh, we're at a show, okay, cool, I'm not going to die. But I think part of our responsibilities as riders is to maintain that mindset and not turn them into donkeys that are just, oh, another day, okay, I'll go back and
if you take your horse for a hack and you're walking him down the road, like many of our small holdings and yards have nice gravel roads because it's an area with small holdings, let your horse drop its head and stretch down and look at the dog barking. Don't walk down the road as you see so many people going wiggle, wiggle, kick, kick, wiggle, wiggle, kick, kick, and the horse is going, it's just
in running reins and
just let your horse go. Let him look at the dog. Let him sniff at the bin. If he's spooking at the bin, spend half an hour sniffing at the bin. Let him just get some other stimulus in his life other than the 60 by 20 and circles and over and over. It's dreadful. And then there's something else I want to talk about. Can we talk about failed vettings?
Yes. I think that is a brilliant topic. I'm not in that boat, I'll be very honest. When life did fall apart a little bit for me, I considered selling Danny, and I put quite a big price tag on him, even though he was an older horse. And I've had a few times, I had people who came, okay, I'm going to buy him, but we're going to haggle you down a bit. And then they come with a vetting and I have a completely 100% hound horse. But I've also been in situations where horses have failed a vetting, but the vets are also very honest, going, but for what you want to do, so I think it's a brilliant topic, and I think especially from your point of view as a rider and as an instructor, I've been out the scene for a while. I think it's a brilliant topic to have a go at.
So if you go and look at your horse of your dreams, it's in your budget, everything seems fine, up comes the flexion tests. And the vet flexes it, and of course holds it there for however long they hold it there. Off the horse goes, and he comes back and says, it's a 2 out of 5. Flex the other legs, off they go, do their thing. And the vet comes back and says, and now you have two options. You have the option of take the risk on this horse and buy it. Or you go, oh my goodness, the vetting wasn't perfect. Can't touch it. My horse that is 17 years old and competing in advanced, the vets in Namibia said x-rays look great. And I said, that's fantastic, but it's a Namibian stud with a Namibian breeder and a Namibian vet. I'd like my own vets to look at the x-rays. And the vet looked at the x-rays and said, there's a few areas of concern for us. Recommend you don't buy the horse. Okay. And I said, okay, so explain to me in non-vet terms. I said, well, this is a bone spur and it can break off today. It can break off next week, or it could never break off. I'm like, yeah, so, I'm looking at this horse and she's my heart horse, and I knew from the moment I saw her face on the first picture, they said I didn't even see the body. From the moment I saw that face, and it was still dial-up internet and the picture is down, that's how long I've had it. Right? When I saw that face, I said to my dad, that's my next horse. And my dad turned around and said, Moenie obviously, jy koop nie 'n perd van 'n foto. We drove all the way up to Namibia. We looked at about 20 horses. She was the second one I saw, and I just looked at the other 18 to keep my dad happy. But I knew. So obviously I bought her against my vet's advice, and I like having regular checkups with my vets on health, on soundness, on is everything on par, is there anything developing. And the same vet that told me to not buy her is the vet that I use to check. He's a very well-known vet in Cape Town. So I use him to come out and check, is everything all right? Is there something I can do maintenance-wise since she's older now? And her x-rays today are better than her x-rays as a 3-year-old. So I think there's a lot of people missing opportunities with really great horses, with things that could potentially be an issue that may never be an issue.
I think you've touched on a really important point here, is especially with you going out to a horse to look at a horse in Namibia. They live out. They don't get exceptional feed quality. You know,
they grow up hard.
Exactly. And when you then x-ray those horses, you see a very raw x-ray. You know, there's no help. It's not like some of the Cape Town studs where I know people give the mares joint supplements so that the foals are supplemented, etc., 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 which I think is brilliant. You know, if you are a breeder and you are willing to give that foal that extra help and start in life, I think that's amazing. But I think sometimes we misread something simply because of something a horse hasn't had.
Yes.
You know, like with her, you've had her for a great many years. She's been fed well, she's been schooled correctly, you've maintained her, you know, and so the x-rays now look better because you've given her body what she needs.
Yes, and not pushed her hard. And there's so many people with young horses that they get on and they grind and they go and it's go, and it's different horses mature at different ages. There's some horses that's ready. World Equestrian Games 2006, Blue Horse Matinee, I think she was 9 years old. Magnificent. She was ready at 9 to do Grand Prix. There's some horses who at 14 are ready for Grand Prix. Same with jumping. There's some of them that's smaller, more compact, more balanced. They can jump the higher classes at the younger age. And there's some of them that's just too lanky, too unbalanced, slow developers. And you just have to listen to your horse. Not because you've now jumped your horse 120 when it was 7, I've now got to take my 6-year-old and you listen to your horse, and you listen to your trainer, you listen to your vets. And it really does, like they say, it takes a village to raise a child. It really does take a village to have a successful equine athlete. You can't skimp on supplements and skimp on food and expect your horse to go to a show and do really well. It might work for 6 months or a year, but if you're interested in having a really long-term relationship with your horse, which is what I'm interested in. I'm not interested in having a horse for a year or two and selling it on. I really want to build a bond and a relationship with my horse. You can't cut any corners.
No, I agree. And I think also what people tend to forget, especially with youngsters, is the amount of farrier correction that they do when they're younger. You kind of, there's a lot that you can do, but there's also only so much you can do without biomechanically completely changing them up.
Yes.
You know, where with the older horses, once they come in work, there's a lot you can do in terms of farrier, in terms of supplements and maintenance and schooling programs that you can help the horses develop to the best of their abilities. You know, if you've got a horse that's very tightened up, to help it out, you're going to ride it more out, more low, to kind of get that top line to stretch out. Where if you've got something that's naturally quite long and sausagey, you're going to start bringing it up and together to try and help that muscle tension build in a positive manner, rather than just leave the horse to be long and low for the rest of its life.
Yes, and I think what we also need to remember is not every horse is a Velebro.
Yeah.
Thank God for that, because I don't know about you, but I can't ride Velebro.
No, there's no way.
I can't.
Too sharp.
I can ride Moose, and I can do awesome things on Moose, and I can learn as much as I can from her. And I think a lot of people want to skip that step. They want to skip the learning step, and they want to get on a horse and just go, or buy an expensive horse. Where a perfectly average horse can teach you so much, and it might not have the greatest vetting. But you know what? It might be the perfect horse for you. And if you don't have a 6-figure budget to buy a horse, you know, then you need to start going, okay, it's got a great mind, it's 2 years older than what I would like it to be. What is that 2 years going to do for you? Say the horse is 12. So many people are scared to touch horses that's 12 or 13. It becomes impossible to sell them. Why? I mean, my horse is better at 17 than she ever was at 13. Thank goodness she's 17 now, you know? Because I don't want the 13-year-old Moose back. You know, compared to what she is now, how strong she is now, and how balanced she is now. People are missing things because they're looking, on paper it's 12, but you don't know if the horse was backed late, or whether it was very inconsistently ridden, so it's a low mileage horse. You can then buy an 8-year-old horse and you go, this one's 4 years younger. But that 8-year-old horse might have gone to 2 different shows every single weekend and been ridden into the ground 6 days a week. Then you're far better off with a low mileage 12-year-old. But again, the average horse, it doesn't have to have spectacular breeding. It just needs a good, sound mind, and you buy the soundest horse you can afford.
No, I think, with the Namibian horses like Moose and some of the older breeders, like Henny with Danny, they often would breed for mind first,
Yes.
then soundness, and then worry about everything else, because they understood that having a horse with a good mind and then sound body was much more beneficial for that horse, and obviously the riders that got onto that horse in the long term, than something that was really flashy, or
Yes.
something that was brilliant but stupid, or brilliant but like absolutely neurotic so that you couldn't ride it. And let's be honest, like we've said, the average South African rider, how many of these kids are 14, 16 years old? They go to school, they have homework, they have exams, they have tests. You can't be riding a horse that's 10 years old and needs consistent schooling to be rideable, and not be a hand grenade, unless you've got the support. And getting that support also comes with losing a part of the partnership.
Yes.
Where like with Danny at the moment, having him being 18 is an absolute blessing, because if life runs away with me, I can get away with riding him 3 days a week. He's very fortunate. He goes out to the paddock and he has a big play, and he's not as explosive as he used to be. If I did that with him as a 12-year-old, I'd be on the floor, because the brain just couldn't cope with that amount of energy.
Yes.
Where now, because he's older and he's more balanced, I take him on as many outdoors as I can. So the time that I spent in the arena is much shorter. I think if I spend half an hour in the arena at a schooling session, that's a lot.
I spend a lot more time walking.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't walk in the arena.
No, yeah.
We have a lovely track, about a kilometre track around Epona, because I ride really early in the mornings before work. I'm not one of those leisure riders that can ride whenever. I have to ride sometimes before the sun is up. Like as the dawn is cracking, I'm busy getting on my horse. And that's where the track is really amazing. It's really safe, it's graded, and even if you can't really see it, it's there and it's safe. So we go for our 10-15 minute walk before we start, then go into the arena, then start our warm-up, our work, and it's half an hour in the arena, no more than that, 3 times a week. And if you compare that to some people that ride for an hour, some people, you listen to them talking at parties and stuff like, I was on my horse for an hour and a half and I really had to drill him to get that. And I'm like, really, an hour and a half? That's a long time. And if you put it in terms for them, it's like, if I take you now and I ask you to plank, and you plank for 30 seconds, and I go, okay, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again, for an hour and a half, you will eventually tell me to just, after 4 goes, will say, listen, stop. I've had enough. Your horse can't tell you that. And that's when they start acting out and doing strange things, and then people go, oh, they're naughty. Oh, he knew he was going to ruin my day. I'm sorry, your horse woke up this morning and he was worried about food and water. He did not go, well, today I'm going to give Mickey such a hard time with the flying changes. I can do them, but I'll just stiffen my back. That's just not how they operate. Their brains, they don't have the frontal lobe that we have. They don't have the frontal cortex. And they don't have the capacity for complex emotions the way that humans feel it. Very simple creatures. They love us. They build bonds. They build trust. All of those things. But a lot of the time, we as riders take our emotions and we project it onto the horse, or our shortcomings and our failings, instead of saying, you know what, I'm struggling with this because I'm really tight in my right arm. It's like, oh well, this horse just won't bend. He was naughty today and he just won't bend, and he ran off and he bucked. It's like, well, maybe your horse was telling you, I'm so frustrated with you pulling my head to the one side. Just take some ownership and go, you know what am I doing to cause this horse discomfort? What am I doing when the horse sees me? Does it go, yes, it's the carrot lady, or oh no, not that one. Is it difficult to catch your horse when you walk into its stable? Does it go, Or does your horse come and say, oh, hey, how's it going? Do you always go there and just throw the tack on and get on and ride? Or do you actually spend time and go, hey, dude, how are you doing today? Would you like a carrot? Can I groom you? And I know it's hard to find time to do that because I'm on a schedule. I've got like 3 horses to work. I need to be in the office at 9 and the sun only comes up and traffic. And I live in the northern suburbs. My horse is at Ipoh now and I work in the southern suburbs. And I still gym in between. So I'm on a schedule. But it's so important to, because I know with her, if I rush in there every morning and throw tack at her and get on and go, by the 3rd morning she goes, no, I don't think so. So you really have to understand that they also have feelings and emotion. They're not as complex as ours. But just the same as you won't let someone just storm into your house and come and
open the fridge and take whatever they want.
And go, hey, knock, knock, are you there? Yes, oh, okay, is it okay if I come in? I said, yes. You know, just be polite with your horse. Treat him with respect, and he'll be so surprised at what you can achieve.
Danny was quite a hard nut to crack. He'd gone through a couple of hands before he ended up with me. I bought him from the stud, but there was quite a few people that half leased him and rode him and that type of thing. And I remember having a conversation with the stud owner, with his owner at that stage, and him saying to me, just spend time. So the first couple of months, look, I was a less than average rider at that stage. I couldn't stay in the arena in a 20-meter circle because I just came off a thoroughbred. So the easiest thing in the whole wide world was to grab the inside rein and it would turn. Where now you get onto a 16-hand warm blood with a humongous engine, you grab the inside rein, it half passes, leg yields out the arena.
Yes.
So it took me a very long time to be able to ride him. But during that time when I was having so many lunge lessons and like really, you know, he wasn't an expensive horse, I spent my money on lessons. I spent the time and the energy having someone help me. But what I also did is I made sure I was the person who was there grooming him, and I tried to feed him as much. And luckily I was still a student at the time, so I had that luxury of having that slight time. But even today, you know, if I kind of hit a thing where, I've got half an hour, I've got to get on, I've got to get off, I've got to go. You do that for 3-4 days in a row, and the friend who used to call you when you open your car door from the paddock kind of half looks at you from his grass and goes, And, you know, I completely agree with you. They don't stand in the paddock and go, how can I make life hard for you today? And they don't wake up this morning and go, yesterday's schooling was so horrible, I'm just going to hang on to that forever. They don't function that way, which is why they're so brilliant, you know, people with PTSD and Asperger's and any mental disability or abnormality, because horses simply, they're in this moment. And
exactly this moment.
Yeah, and that's what they ask of us as well. And I think in saying that, us being with them in this moment, whether it's riding, whether it's tacking them up, whether it's, you know, hi dude, how are you? How have you been? Are you feeling okay? You know, again, it's not about I'm worrying about you about yesterday. I'm not panicking about what could go wrong tomorrow. All I'm doing is I'm spending this moment right here with you. And that took me quite a while, and I'm very fortunate with my horse is he wouldn't allow it. So if I got on and I was in a bad mood, he'd say, well, on the floor, thank you. You can deal with your bad mood down there. You know, and I had to learn to just be me and just be here and just be now. So yeah, I think it's very important, especially for younger riders. You know, I think the sooner they can learn humility and gentleness around these incredibly gentle creatures, I think that the quicker you get somewhere. You know, I think you got Moose as a junior, didn't you?
No, I was a young adult.
Yeah.
But I got her as a baby horse, and I bought her for myself as a 21st present.
Okay, yeah. So like, yes.
Not that, no, it's like 2-3 years ago.
Yesterday.
She was my 21st present from myself to myself, and she has been there through relationships that work and don't work, through jobs that work and don't work, through bosses that are great and horrible, and you know, she's always just been there, and it really was the best thing for me. The best 21st gift.
Yeah.
Best birthday present ever.
Have you had any like serious injuries that you've kind of had to rebuild your life from in terms of riding, or I ask because, you know, I've recently had a shattered hand, which I've kind of had to redo life on.
So before Moose, I had this really sensitive soul, a massive 17-2 thoroughbred, but very sensitive, very high strung, difficult to box. He had a rough life before I got him. He had a really good life, and then he went off to what would have been a great life, but the previous owners found out it was actually a bit of a disaster. They got him back, and he was a broken soul, and we ended up together, and he taught me an incredible amount, but he was really high strung. And I was studying, and I went out jawling one night, and I ended up as a passenger in a really serious car accident. I fractured my foot, my femur, my pelvis in 2 places, my ribs, my hand. I cut my face open. If I frown, I still frown at a better angle.
I see it.
I almost lost my eye, so the cut was much bigger.
Yeah.
Went all the way in there and into my over there. And I tried to convince the surgeons, and because I've got a nice long
battle scar,
pins and screws and titanium plates and all kinds of awesome things in there. And I tried to convince my surgeon that riding was therapeutic and rehabilitating, and he's going like riding a pony, like a therapy pony. So I'm like, 17-2 therapy pony. And it's actually at that point where I realized he would not be suitable, and I needed something with a better mind. And I started looking, lying in bed for 6 months, started reading up, and I had this HQ magazine, which I still have, that did a excerpt on Namibian breeding and all the studs and all the bloodlines, and I studied it up, and I dialed up interneted, and I looked at the ones that had websites, and some of them didn't, and you sent emails and you don't hear anything back, and in that time I found Moose. And initially people always say when they meet Moose, they're like, oh, she's so amazing, she's like this, wrong, wow, you know, it must have been so great, she must have been a super young horse. I'm going, no, she wasn't. Actually, when she arrived and she got off the horse box, because I saw her in the rain season, plenty of grass, and she was fat and round and beautiful, and then we had to wait for enough horses to come into South Africa to fill up the horse box, standard procedure, and then it was the dry season, so she came to me at the end of the dry season, which is a very different horse, and if it wasn't for her markings, I'll send you the pictures. She got out the horse box, and I'm like, everyone's there like, yay, Karin's new horse has arrived, so exciting. She got out the horse box, and everyone's like, yay, and I went, is that it? That's not it. That's not what I saw, that's not what I bought, that's not it. And then I realized, okay, it's skinny, and somehow the tail is only this long, and it's got no mane, and I don't know what happened to it. And then she was supposed to be back by the time she arrived, but some personal emergency happened, and the breeders had to fly back to Germany, so they had no time to back her for me. So instead of having a 3.5-year-old backed horse arrive, I had a 3.5-year-old halter trained horse arrive. And I was like, looking at her, I chucked her out for 3 months. Luckily it was on a farm, there was grass paddocks, there were other horses there. I just chucked her out for 3 months, and she would come into the stable, and she was wild. She was, I mean, if you go into the stable now, she just about licks you all over to find carrots. But she would kick buckets out your hand. She would be like flighty. She's never been in the stable. Everything was a bit much for her. But because she had a trainable mind, we could work a little bit on those things every day. We started lunging. We got the bit in her mouth. Got the saddle on. Backing her was interesting. First time we put the saddle on, no drama. So we put the saddle on, tighten the girth. He's like, okay, tightening the girth. No. Okay. Undo it, put it on, do it up, undo it, do it. That's all fine. It's just all great. She's all calm, and she's looking at me going, I don't know what you're doing, but cool. Put it on, tighten. Okay, let's just walk her back to the stable. She roached her back like a cat. Completely round. Put her nose between her toes, screamed and peed. Screamed and peed. And she just stood like that, screaming and peeing. And I looked at my dad, because I worked on an Arab stud farm at that stage, and I've backed many horses. I've never seen that. My dad's backed many horses, and I'm looking at him going, what do we do? She didn't bounce, she didn't buck, she just screamed and peed with her nose on the ground and her back broached. I don't know, what do we do? She's like, I don't know, just wait for it to stop. So we're staying 5 minutes or so, and then eventually she ran out of pee and she ran out of scream, and then we went, okay. Took her up to the stable. The next day we repeated it, none of that. Same thing, and I think 2 or 3 days later my dad said, right, time to get on. Like, Dad, I've got a titanium femur, and I've got like a broken this and a broken that, and I can't do that. No, she'll be fine. I'm like, yeah, did you see her do the scream and pee thing? I said, no, she'll be fine. And put my foot in the stirrup, put some weight on, the whole toot, everything's fine. And I go and sit down. I'm like, okay, scream and pee. And nothing happened. And the nothing that happened probably carried on for about 2 years. It was hard to walk.
Yeah.
It was impossible to trot with a human on your back. You can't trot. There's something on your back. Cantering, we had people behind her with a whip. We had a leading horse. It just didn't happen. And you look at her now and you're like, yeah, but she's so forward and off your leg. And I'm like, yeah. I really, really spent a lot of time crying on her in the first few years, going, what have I done? I spent all my lifetime savings on this horse. It is a disaster. I can't sell her because she can't go. I can't sell her as a riding horse because she won't move. I can't sell her as a brood mare because she hasn't done anything. And, and at that stage I was just started working, just finished studying. I'm like, and I'm so broke, I can't even afford the bullets. I'd have to cut her head off with a pocket knife. And, that is the mental space I was in with this horse. And now, if you tell me I'll give you R1 million cash, I'll laugh at you. I'm like, that's not nearly enough money for that. You can't buy her from me. But boy, those first couple of years were hard. And then I had to find the right instructor to get me and her going, which happened to be a very German man, Helmut Wagner, that worked with legacy stud horses at the time. And he would only work in the indoor, so I had to truck her all the way out from the northern suburbs to Wellington to go to this lesson. And he's like, show me your horse. And I'm like, he's like, oh, it's a nice horse. And trot it, and I'm like, try. And he went, oh. And he disappeared. He came back with this massive lunging whip, and he said, trot. I'm like, okay. And he got after her with that lunging whip in that indoor arena, and eventually she was trotting that her legs were coming out at the top like that. And then we were cantering, and eventually he didn't have to chase us anymore. Eventually I could just go and trot, and she would go, okay, I can trot with a human on. But it was a process. Yeah. It really was a process to get her there. And I think a lot of people think, yeah, but it's Moose, it's easy, because she's such an easy horse now. But she wasn't always an easy horse. And I think we're so used to, in this day and age, instant gratification, with social media and everything. Oh, but Mickey and Danny went to a show and they got first place, and I went and I'm always second to them, and the classes are too small, so I don't get to resent. But I don't know what you did in your losing season. I don't know what you went through when you weren't winning. And that's what we forget, is it's gonna suck. And if you look at the odds, 1 in every 4 people get a rosette. So for 25% of competitors, it's a good day. For 75% of us, it sucks. Or something went wrong, or who knows what. And we need to embrace the suck and go, you know what? Today is your day. And it takes nothing away from me to go, congratulations, I'm so happy for you. I might not feel it, but if I say it, you feel better. If I say it to you afterwards, I might go and reflect, like, you know what, if I was in that situation and I won, I would want people to say, well done, you deserve it. And I think that is how we start making the competitive world just a little bit nicer. It takes nothing away from me to say congratulations, I'm so happy for you. And that's what I'd like to see a lot more of in our sport.
If I think, like, you have your own story about how things were really hard in the beginning. I used to get,
in the middle.
I used to get 45% in prelim. Like that was our average score because I couldn't canter on the left leg, like couldn't. It just didn't happen ever. And if there was a puddle, we'd freeze, and like stupid things like that. And obviously because I couldn't ride a 20-meter circle because I was pulling on my inside rein, that 45 was our benchmark for prelim. And I had to work really, really hard consistently over a number of years. And I was a novice for a long time, and it's only after I put my foot down and said, you know what, I want to be better. I want to have trained my horse properly. I want to have an upright horse, and a horse that even though he might be a little built on the forehand, I can actually sit back and that comes back to me. Like little things like that. If we look at, there's a couple of horses in the Western Cape that are tricky. Some of the Rivendell stallions are tricky, but she's done such a brilliant job in just exactly like you said. You took a year off, and you took some time and you fixed what needed to be fixed. And I think so often, like me having a broken hand and now not competing for a couple of months, you kind of look and you go, oh, that horse hasn't been out since forever, I wonder what's wrong, instead of going, maybe they're taking a break, maybe they're fixing something, maybe the rider's injured. And same thing, when someone then does come back out, or someone actually, it's a rider who's been having problems with something. I know there's one horse that's now medium. I remember seeing it in EM, and it's a schoolmaster with a younger rider on it, and she couldn't feel the flying changes for a long time. And now she's gotten to a point where she can ride a proper counter canter, and she can ride a proper flying change. For a rider like that, I'm happy.
And it takes nothing away from your journey or your accomplishments. There's enough sunshine for everyone.
Yeah.
And if you see a rider that you see at a show often, and you don't see them for a couple of months, you know what? Instead of going, oh, I wonder if the horse is injured, or pick up the phone and phone them and say, hey, Mickey, I haven't seen you for 3-4 months. Is there something going on? I didn't see anything on social media. Are you okay? Is the horse okay? Just start building that community again. Because I had a chat with Jane Shepherd. At the last Europa, and she came out. I hadn't seen her in ages. We used to compete. We'd go both of us go to EM, and she'd win the one class, and then I'd win the one class, and we were constantly then she'd be above me in the rider rankings, and I'd be above her. So it's
healthy competition,
and we were always very supportive of each other. And she said, Karin, I haven't seen you out much last year. And I said, you know what, Jane, I needed a break from competition. I just needed to fix these fine changes. And she looked at me and she said, that's so incredible that you actually said need a break. Because she was in a big car accident. She almost died. And she said people were talking about all kinds of stuff. And she said all she needed was to just get back on track. I mean, we forget that we're all just humans. And as much as we'd like to believe we're really serious about our sport in this country, there's very few of us who can do it professionally. For the rest of us, it's a hobby, and we have this whole life and career and family and other things that we need to look after as well. And sometimes the horse, even though we don't want to admit it, is last on the list.
Yeah. I think they come first on the list financially, which is why we do all these other things. But then because we have all these other things we have to look after, time-wise, attention-wise, they often come last.
Yes.
And I'm very careful not to worry about it too much.
You can't beat yourself up about it all the time. And there's times where I have to work late, or something breaks at work and I have to work through the night. There's no way I can go. I've tried it. I've tried going straight from working 36 hours and then go ride my horse. It doesn't work. You know what? You stop by, you give them some carrots. And sometimes we need to take a break because of mental health, which is also not something that gets addressed very often. And again, if we look at the statistics, 1 in every 4 riders gets a rosette. There's 75% of the people that come to show has a bad day. Results-wise. They might be riding a personal best or whatever, but if they don't have that inner strength to reflect and say, this is depending on the judge or the horse or whatever, it doesn't matter what everyone else does, but I had a good day. If they don't have that resilience, they're having a bad day. 75% of the people that come to a show. And if you don't look after that, if you don't make sure that you're actually okay, horse riding gets really lonely. Especially if you're working and you've got a family, you've got other responsibilities, it becomes really lonely. Where most people start riding at a young age, and it's very social. as an adult, and you're trying to balance family and home and career, and not just a job, but it has to be a career, and you have to excel on everything. There's all this pressure. You end up riding at odd times during the day, and you do it alone, and then it's not fun, and you go to a show, and we're all so wanting to do well, you know, that we forget that when I'm in the warm-up arena and I'm busy looking down, seeing this moose there, and I'm not looking up and I don't see you, and I ride across your line, we're so quick to say, hey, watch where you're going, man, it's left shoulder to left shoulder. And going, oh, the bloody Mickey, man, did you see what she did? Instead of going, you know what, I was actually wrong. Sorry. It takes nothing to say sorry. And we all under pressure and stress, and when we get to shows, we go, you're not crazy.
It almost like you put it in a pressure cooker.
Yes.
And you put all of us in the same pressure cooker.
In the warm-up.
Yes.
Zip. And I used to be dreadful at shows. I used to be one of those screamy people. And my husband will tell you it was really unpleasant. Back then we were just dating, and it was really unpleasant to be with me at shows. As long as I was in the arena, it was fine.
Yeah, but everywhere else,
But before, just take off that overreach, but don't do that, touch that, why is that? Really just agitated and high-strung because you've put so much time and energy and effort and finances into this show, you know, you'd swear it was the bloody Olympics. That it just gets so overwhelming, and you're trying to do elementary, and you can't sit the trot, and you know it's going to be a bad show before you even take your horse out the horse box. And my trainer at the time said, why don't you go see a sports psychologist? I'm like, I don't need to lie on the couch and go, well, when I was 5 years old, something bad happened to me, and this is how I feel. And that's actually not what happened. I went to go see this guy. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's go see a sports shrink, you know. Kopdokter. He's now going to fix my head. Ooh, let's see. And it turns out he is the bass guitarist for Flat Stanley.
Oh my goodness.
Such a cool dude. And he goes, listen, I don't want to delve into personal experiences, things. I'm interested in how your brain functions under pressure. I'm like, yeah, but you're sitting in your office, we're having a chat, whatever. And they're like, how you're not going to come to a show and watch me under pressure. And he was able to, he gave me a little written exercise to do, and he was able to, in his office, no pressure whatsoever, he was able to trigger me like this to get me into the exact emotional state that I would get in at a show. And he goes, now these are the tools that you need to put into your toolbox to make sure that you know at a show that everything's going to be okay. And now I can run a Europa show, a 2-day show with 60 to 120 horses attending. I can judge at the show, I can ride 2 horses at the show, and it's pretty pleasant. Okay, if I make mistakes in the test, I need about 5 minutes afterwards where you just, you know, horse gets carrots, and I just stand there going, oh, really?
What's it? Pat the horse, kick the rider.
Yes. And that reflection at the end is so important. But had I never gone to see the Kopdokter, and I mean there's such a stigma around mental health, but that really, it was a game changer for my riding, because I had the whole thing backwards. I thought that when I get a rosette, I've done well. You know, like that's how you get a rosette, and you've done well. And that's, if you go and sit with him and he doesn't want to see you every week for a weekly slot and financially drain you. He wants to see you 3 times, teach you the tools, go away, come back in a year's time. And I think people are scared that they're going to have to go lie on a couch with a doctor that like examines their brain. You go for 3-4 sessions. Some people need 1 session and just straight on road off you go. I needed 3 or 4 sessions, and I go back every 2-3 years or so and just readjust. I go, listen, you know, I found that, you know, what's going on? And he'll go, okay, talk me through your processes. What do you do? This and that. He goes, yeah, but you know this. Why aren't you doing this? And he's got this board, and we draw it all out, and we look at it, and I'm like, no, I don't know why I'm not doing that. I know I should. He goes, well, then do it. And then I go back, and I look at my journals, and I'm like, and I haven't been doing it for 6 months. I know it. I've got the tool, it's just lying in the toolbox not being used. And I think there's so many riders that can benefit with that. It's just,
I completely agree. When I was still in Kailami, we also, as a collective, the horse riding community there, kind of the dressage community kind of also hit this point where I think we were fighting against each other so much, and we're very fortunate there. The professional riders said, whoa, stop. And the professional riders and the Gauteng Dressage Committee and the amateur riders, and so we all got together and we kind of had a conversation about what the heck was going on. And it was actually one of the event instructors said, look, I think we need a sports psychologist. And same thing, we're all like, oh.
Yeah.
And what he actually came in and did was like a whole seminar and a clinic with us. Like we sat one evening and we like had a big fat chat, and he kind of addressed a lot of issues. And his big thing was, guys, you can either win the rosette, you can lose, or you can win the lesson.
Yeah. And that is the most important.
Exactly. And as a collective, it completely changed the dynamic. Which is, you know, I think slowly starting to happen in Cape Town as well, which is, again, with the series, I think it's why the Victor Ladorum series is so awesome, because you see the same people, and you compete against the same people, and you see the people going through hardships and getting something right that they got wrong before, and, you know, it's so awesome to be able to have someone, like Lisa asked me the other day, so how was your test, you know, it's like, oh, well, I didn't get the mark I wanted, but I wrote a really good test. I was happy with this and this. Oh, that's fantastic. You know, you ask about her test and how did that go, and you know, you kind of get to know each other, and you don't have to necessarily be friends, but you can be good to each other.
You can be kind, and I think a lot of the times if you just the name. So pick a name, whether it's a Carsten or a Dawn or Michelle, or there's always a name, or a Nicola or a Tanya or whatever the name is, you know, and you've got it in your mind that it's professional riders, and you know they ride at a certain level, and oh, they've won the class, and oh, it's not fair, and they're sitting on this fancy horse. A lot of the times when you go up to them at an average show and you say, hey, how was your test? They'll go, you know, it was a little bit disappointing. It was a little bit disappointing. The horse, it kind of spooked at the judges box, you know. And you go, what? Your fancy horse spooks at the judges box? Like, the horse spooked at the judges box. Or you'd say, like, you know, like, are you happy with your marks? Like, I think the judge was a bit generous. You know, really, because sometimes you come out of the arena and you look at the score sheet and you're like, wow, I'm only 15% behind the first place in the class. You know, and the first place in the class might turn around and say, you know what, I didn't feel that it was that score today. And just talking to each other, and I'm not talking about like trying to delve into conspire and be bitchy and like, oh well, your horse spooked at the judges box. You know, talk to the people. They're human. They're human, and we all make mistakes, and our horses are horses. I mean, we're sitting on 600 kilos of, we don't really have to do what you ask us to do, but we do because we kind of like you, you know. And it's a odd sport. It really is. If you think about how strong horses are and how they're a flight animal, they're not supposed to be calm and docile. They're supposed to be a little bit wired to stay alive, and things that move suddenly could potentially kill you and eat you. We're not wired that way, and we get on this awesome animal and we go, cool dude, we're going to go hoy on a trailer behind a car. You can't see how fast we're going, when we're turning, when we're braking. And you
there's stuff coming past you, that's okay too.
Yeah, there's noises and smells and all kinds of things, and we're just going to put you in this confined space for 40 minutes, an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending how far you travel, take you out in a random place, and then expect you to do the same kind of work you do at home. And then when you're tired, we're going to pull you back in the confined space and go. You know, it's a really odd sport, and we take for granted how much the horses give to us, but we need to start giving more to each other. And when someone comes out of a test, just say, well done. You know? Not well done because you think they scored a 70%, even if it was a horrible test. Well done, you made it through a horrible test. You're out on the other side, you've got a lot of things that you can work on now. Well done, you did it. You put yourself out there, because a lot of the times people are like, yeah, but you know, there's people on the side, people want to talk. They're going to talk. And I said, like I said before, what other people say about you is absolutely none of your business. It's none of your business. You can be the best person you can be. You can be someone kind to someone else, and if you can't find a nice person, then be the nice person. Say, go well.
Yeah.
Me telling you go well, if we're riding in the same class, is not going to make your horse go better than my horse. It's not going to make you a better rider than me. It's not going to make me a better rider than you. We are two completely different horses doing completely different things with completely different strengths and weaknesses. But you know what? Me saying go well right before you go into your class might just make you feel that little bit more positive, like, I can do this. I can actually do this. And let you have a great ride. And if no one tells you go well before you go into your test, then you make sure you tell everyone you see going in to a test to go well, or well done when they come out. And soon people will go like, hey, that's Vicky, she's like that friendly girl, it's always so nice. And they'll start asking about your test. And sometimes we don't want to talk about it, you know, like that 5 minutes I need after a lead. Like a line of tempi changes that turns into a gallop, and then 3 one-time changes instead of 3 four-time changes that I've done twice now. Then I need 5 minutes. And if you come out, you know, and I make sure I don't make eye contact with anyone at that point. And then afterwards, if you come up to me and you're like, hey, how was the test? I'll be like, oh, you know, pat the horse, kick the rider. And we need to be able to be honest about those things, because other people need to see we all struggle. We all struggle. The names, the household names on fancy horses. Unknown riders on unknown horses, unknown breeding. We all struggle. We all have things that we struggle with. And my struggle at advanced might be someone else's struggle at novice. It doesn't make their struggle less important. Or to them, they're still struggling with that. And I was there. I was in novice, and I struggled with stuff. And the inside rein, I mean, goodness, if someone had told me earlier this inside rein, right? I know, like how many years did you spend trying to let go of the inside rein?
To this day, I catch myself going, oh, wait, no, okay, you can have that one. I'll support you on this one.
Yes. And I mean, it's so many lessons that and I think that's where Europe and America and those places are so far ahead of us, because they have clinics and consortiums and week-long sessions where they sit and they talk and they discuss and they support, and all the like-minded people go together, because you also get people who only want to ride prelim, and there's nothing wrong with that. If that's your happy space, that's where you enjoy your horse, there's nothing wrong with that. Each one of us wants to do, and with the exception maybe of 1 or 2 people, is we just want to enjoy our horses. We want to go out, we want to have fun. And not everyone likes that relentless grind of getting better and being really hard on yourself. And there's nothing wrong with staying in prelim or in novice or in elementary. But there's also nothing wrong with just dipping your toe. And we need to support each other and understand it takes all kinds of people to make the world go round, and it takes all kinds of horse riding people to make the horse riding world go round. We need the serious ones. We need the ones that clown about. We need the ones that break the tension. We need the ones that, you know, is always on the sidelines. The ones that help us take our boots off when we're on top of the horse. The people that plait our horses are grooms. They are so important. They are probably the most vital part, apart from you, your horse, and your instructor. Is the groom. That's the person who tells you, Moose was not happy today, didn't eat. I gave her 2 carrots, she only had 1. You know, or like, Moose seems a little bit, like I arrive at the stable, I say, how is Moose? No, she's good. Good. Then you know it's going to be a good ride. Or he says, listen, like, she's got this little mark on her. Did you ride her hard in the clinic? Like, where's this mark? And you have to go look. It's like, oh, there's like 3 hairs off where she scratched herself in the stable. Like, no, I didn't. Like, oh, he's just checking, he just wants to make sure. And we need to start giving back to our grooms as well. I mean, when I get home from a show, the first thing I do is I show McQueen my rosette and I test, and if I don't have a rosette, he's like, show me the test. And he goes, what is this for?
What did you do?
What is this for? Because Moose can't do anything wrong. So what did you do to get this for? You know? And they care about the horses, they're passionate, they love them, and I think a lot of us take them for granted.
I absolutely love the relationship that the grooms and the horses build. A while ago, why did we take him off? There was some other reason. I got Daniel on Equitop Myoplast mostly because he's older, to keep his muscle condition on. And I took him off it for a while. I think my thinking was, we weren't really competing, and he didn't really need all of that extra oomph. So I kept him on the electrolytes and the joint supplement, but I took him off the Equitop Myoblast. And within a week, the groom was like, I'm not sure he's okay. And it's just because of all those crude fats that we kind of like took out,
Yes.
and he was a bit flatter. But I mean, last weekend my horse ended up having gas colic, and the person who caught it was the groom. He said, he went to the stable manager and said, he's eating, but, and just that fact that they know them, that they know
Yes.
this is a horse who really like goes at his food, or this is a horse who doesn't, and it's fine that he eats calmly, that difference, and we owe them the world. They are there almost 24 hours a day, long hours, relentless hours, and they don't often get the shine. But like I also, whenever we go to a show, the grooms are always the first people when I get home to go, how did it go, and I often, it depends from yard to yard and from groom to groom whether you can take a groom with or not. But I mean, it's really hard if you've got a yard of like 40 horses and now you take one groom out and the other grooms have to like really pick up that slack. So I completely understand that you can't always take a groom with, but I think it's so important for us to kind of appreciate them, and we don't have to like be condescending about it.
Yes.
Be genuine about it, because these guys, like they live for our horses quite literally.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's also one of the reasons why I try to do it every second show at Europa, where I do the groom's lucky draw. And you'd be surprised how few people actually put their grooms forward. So
yeah.
And it's just the last time it was just like a whole bunch of vegetables. It's not massively expensive things, but it's just something to say thank you. Thank you for everything you do. And it's hard. I don't know if people are just not bringing grooms to shows anymore, or but then you sit up in the officials box and you see like there's a groom. It's like, why do these people not nominate their grooms? And it's difficult because obviously Europa is not close to any shopping malls, so I can't just shoot off to a shopping mall and go buy a few more things. So by closing date of entries, I really need to know how many grooms, and I run the grooms and the instructors together. So also to say thank you for our instructors for coming all the way out and reading our test and warming us up, because if you look at the time they spend, it's way more than a lesson. And they might be there for 3 or 4 different people, but if they had to run 3 or 4 lessons back to back, they'd be out of there way before prize giving. So just as a little thank you, it's either a box of chocolates or some cookies or whatever, just to say thank you. And there's so few people that nominate their instructors.
Alright, Karin, thank you so much for joining me today. It was awesome talking to you. I think, we know each other from being at shows together, and I know my mom has a history with you and your mother. But it was so awesome, really getting to know you and kind of exchanging ideas, and kind of seeing how certain things we think the same of when we walked a similar path, and then other things it's like, no, wait, you came from that direction, I came from this direction. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
I had a great time. Guys, thank you so much for watching and for joining us. If there's anyone else that you would like me to interview, or a specific industry that you kind of feel that you wanted to know more about, let me know. If you feel that someone could use some of the information in this video, please press the share button, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.